Hi, everyone. Samantha Russell here with 20 over 10 and FMG Suite. And I am delighted to be talking with Thomas Kopelman today, all about Instagram and the success he has seen using Instagram to grow his business. So Thomas, hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your business first. Like, who do you target? Who do you work with? How long have you been an advisor? So people get some background knowledge.
Yeah. So I've been an advisor since right when I graduated college 3 years ago. So I think that surprises a lot of people. But where I first started was at a broker dealer. So it was kind of in between of like selling and advising. Like I could charge for advice. So that was good, but it wasn't really the right place for me. And now I've been in the independent space we're coming up just a month away from a year. So who I serve, from the beginning, I knew that finding a niche was important and that I didn't understand retirees, and not in a way that like I didn't understand them. I just wanted to work more closely with people that I could relate to. And that's millennials. Like I understand what they're going through, the journey. I also have like siblings that are older. So I've helped them with finance as they go from job to job and from, renting to a house to now having kids to college planning, all of those things in life stages. So I figured who best to work with than the people that I understand. And it makes it so much easier to create content
Mhm.
when I understand what I'm looking for. So I just, try to appeal to the person that's similar to me.
So you don't have to feel like you have to fake it as much because it's just naturally organic, what's already on your mind or the mind of your peers.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be way harder to write about like how to prepare for retirement when I've never seen it. But like everything that I'm writing about are things that I'm dealing with and other people my age and my friends and my family are dealing with. So it makes it easier, closer to home, more relatable.
Okay. So before we get into a little bit more Instagram, and if you don't feel comfortable answering this question, it's totally fine. But I know a lot of people will immediately say, well, that target is like, that's not where the money is. And so they'll immediately just dismiss it. So do you have a different model than like a percentage of AUM, or what's your fee model to make it worthwhile for you to advise this group that a lot of times their assets are tied up in other places?
Yeah, good question. So this is just the old Twitter, sit here and try to debate who's right, who's wrong, what's the right fee structure. And like I try to say this in a very nice way, but I live in Indianapolis. Like it's not an expensive city and my costs are low. So I don't have to charge what it would be if I lived in San Diego and tried to work with young professionals to have an office and do all of that. But our fee structure is we have like a basic model for young professionals and young couples that's $750 up front. And
Okay.
then starting month 3, it's $150 a month until their family grows. So we make it known that planning is what's most important. Like I fully believe that planning is by far the most important part of finance for young professionals. Like investments are important, but going from 8% to 10% return doesn't really do a whole lot on $5,000. But to change your savings rate from 10 to 25 and have the right places and tax advantages makes a massive difference. So we charge on planning the same as a robo advisor. So, or on the assets, we charge 0.35 on any assets we manage for our clients. So
Oh, wow.
then once you have a family, it becomes more complex, estate planning, all of that. We move up to $300 a month. And then once our clients have 360,000 in assets, they graduate to the AUM model. And so then it's 1%. And then at a million, it's 0.75, 3 million, 0.5. And then it just keeps going down from there.
So you're really building the business to, allow people to, pay what's going to be most, I don't want to say easiest, but it's going to make the most sense for the phase of life they're in. But also it sounds like you're setting up the practice to really be a practice that is going to be growing over the next 20, 30 years, you and your clients together, like going through this relationship, which is really interesting.
Yeah, the goal is definitely to graduate. We actually even have a model that we don't talk much about before that. That's a robo advisor. Pretty much we manage investments for people that aren't ready for planning yet. So we kind of have every stage from you graduate, you can do this. And then, then you go to the 150 a month. And then that gets you, it's like one new plan a year. So like in the beginning, I time it when they're going to get bonuses and salary increases when our annual reviews are, because that's the biggest planning opportunities for millennials. And so then we meet, we get an update of, what's life like, what are goals, we give them a new plan. And then I have an accountability meeting after that where I make sure everything gets implemented for that year. And then if everything went according to plan, that's really the service level. But most people, honestly, probably 80% of my clients reach out once a month to either say like, hey, I got an extra commission, what do I do? Or now I need a car, or whatever comes up. And so then we just put time on the calendar and we meet and we get it done. But that's really all they need, because they don't need like, every 6-month portfolio reviews and stuff, because it's not a whole lot. But then once you get to that 300 a model, it does. So the goal is like people graduate models. And then technically when you go from 300 a month to the AUM, you'll actually pay less for a while, because that 1% on 360 ends up being less than 300 a month plus that 0.35 AUM. So it's kind of like hey, get there and then you're paying less. And
I love that.
I've
incentivizing them to save more.
Exactly. And we heard that from a different financial planning firm, I think in Michigan. I don't remember where Justin heard it from, but we decided like, let's give that a try. And I have a few clients who have made it to the AUM model already, which, is really exciting. But most of my clients are 150 model, and I have a few in the 300 model.
And just to make sure everybody's aware, you mentioned Justin. Justin Castelli is your partner at RLSWealth.
Yeah.
So everybody knows. So what I really like about this though, is it seems like there's always historically been this kind of like mad grab to try to get people to become a client of an advisory firm when they're, 10 years out from retirement, right? Like that's when everybody's trying to sway people. And what you're really doing instead is going after or providing a really valuable service to people that a lot of the industry is not paying any attention to. And the idea being that they stay with your firm all the way through that life cycle. And there really is no mad grab at the end. They're already your client and they see the value you've provided through their lifetime.
Exactly. And I see as I grow that they're going to grow with me, like you said. So like, I'm always going to work with millennials probably, but that doesn't mean millennials are 20 to 30-year-olds at that point. Like they're all graduating up age range. So eventually I'll be working with millennial retirees, but that's who at the same time that I can relate to. So as I grow, then also fees grow because they have more money, and we kind of all advance together throughout this journey. So that's the goal. And, it's nice to have a model for everybody. I think a big thing for me was that I want to work with anybody that's serious about money. Like I don't, in AUM, it doesn't matter if anybody's serious about money, you can't work with people. But I have clients who make $50,000 a year that pay $150 a month because they know nothing about money. And it's a great option for them. And it ends up making them money in the long run. And I like that we have that option, but also where it's not like $50 a month, because then you can't really give much service. We have to have so many clients. And also a lot of people will like $50 a month, sure, and they won't be serious about it. We don't want clients that are, lukewarm about planning.
Such a good point. Well, so let's shift gears. Thank you for all that background info. I think that really helps set the stage. So Instagram, you and I were talking offline and you were mentioning some of the success you're having with Instagram, which, makes total sense when we think about social media platforms. Millennials love Instagram. I'm in the millennial generation. A lot of us grew up using Facebook when we were in college. And then when all of like our parents' generation or grandparents went to Facebook and it got so many ads, we all kind of shifted over to Instagram. And a lot of people in our generation aren't yet really heavily using places like TikTok, but they're really spending a lot of time on Instagram. So let's talk a little bit about Instagram. When did you start using Instagram for your business? And do you have a particular strategy that you're using on Instagram?
So it's funny because I heard from somebody that like, oh, TikTok is this great opportunity. Maybe you should try it. And so for a while I was like, I know I'm not gonna do like dancing videos, but can I do videos? Because of the organic reach that you can get on TikTok is like it's so good compared to other platforms. But then Justin and I talked back and forth and we're like, yeah, maybe TikTok's just not the right place. And so he said, well, how do we do it on Instagram? And I was like, well, do I create my own business Instagram page or the long game? Because I feel weird if I post stuff and then people that follow me only wanted personal. Now I turn into this business page, which again, I think it's all just head trash. Like at the end of the day, if people don't want to follow me for what I'm doing for a living, they probably didn't want to follow me in general. So I was going to lose them anyways. And so I took the approach of let's use my personal page but how do I do it? Because I don't want to turn it into like every single post on there is just financial. And so I try to take the approach of like, one financial, maybe one video, and then one life, and cycle through it. Like I don't sit here and pretend my Instagram page is the best looking one out of everybody. Like that's just not really what I'm going for. But I try to make it now of like an interactive like community for my following. And so the hardest thing about Instagram is really growing the following without like, I don't want to pay for followers because that's not the right type of people to have. And it's really hard to reach like second and third connections through Instagram. So that's the downsides that I always want to talk about, because that was what went in my head before I started. But what I've done is I've used Instagram as a platform for the people that follow me to tell me what they want to learn about. And so like, not only do I share great content in my stories every day of like good tweets from other advisors and, good videos other advisors put on, things that are just super relevant to millennials, but I also give them opportunities to ask me questions. So like today I posted one of like, what do you want me to write about? And, you'll get 3 or 4 answers. And then every Thursday, I let people submit questions that I answer via video on Friday, because from your recommendation and always talking about video, I was like, I need to do more video, but I hate editing video. Like, I'm not going to lie. Right. It's my favorite thing. I'm not great at it. And I don't think I'm really at the point to go pay $100 per video to, hire it out. And so I said, how can I get more video but take away that time, because editing just takes a lot of time. And so Instagram was my way to have direct video, directly asking questions that people are asking me. And then a lot of times I note these, and then those are my new blog post ideas as well, because if millennials are already asking it, there's going to be more who are asking those same questions. But then it's other opportunities of people to say like, what does it cost? Or what does the financial advisor do if it's not just managing investments? Like they get to ask questions that are anonymous so they don't feel bad. And then it tags them as a response. So they see that the response is answered for them. And then my whole audience gets to see it as well.
Yeah. So for those of you that are not using Instagram already, who are going to watch this, what we're talking about here is something called stories. So stories are, if you go to Instagram and you're on your phone, all those little circles up at the top of the screen that you can click on, and they'll just keep playing on an auto loop from one person to the next. Right now, people are spending the most amount of time on Instagram watching stories, way more than they spend scrolling through looking at actual posts. So Instagram's algorithm's changing all the time. For a while, they prioritized posts. And then, there was a period of time where it was Instagram TV that they were prioritizing. I know right now they've been prioritizing reels a lot, but stories are still where the most people hang out. And I think it's because they're by nature supposed to be not produced in any way, really organic, informal, somebody just talking to the camera. And they do get a lot of traction. And so what Thomas is talking about is you can put a little question box up that says, ask me something, ask me a question. And people type in their questions, and then you can throw that question back up on the screen and talk out your answer, which is really great. So we'll show an example here for all of you. But I wrote down a couple of the questions. I went and looked through your stories that people were asking you. And I think these questions are great. I mean, I think there's just this, again, people forget how old millennials really are now. And people still think of millennials as being, in their early 20s all the time. So one of the questions that I saw somebody said was, where do I start saving after I've maxed out my 401k and my Roth, right? So these aren't just people who are like, help me, I'm in debt. They have really great investing questions too. So, what kind of people are viewing your stories, and have you ever booked a client, like potential client meeting from people watching these stories?
Yeah. So one thing to note too before that is the best thing about these stories is that then I can let them live on my profile. So when people go on my profile, I have a tab that says money questions, and you can click on it, and every question I've ever answered is right there. And so I don't really track it and know how many people do it, but that's a value add to always let that live there, because, if you go to LinkedIn or whatever else, who knows what my most recent post was? It might not relate, but if you get stuck into my stories, there's probably something there that's going to relate really easily. But then clients wise, so it's funny, I actually just had a client book a meeting 20 minutes before this from Instagram. And I think one thing I want to note is not all of these people are people I don't know. A lot of this is letting people that already know me vet me and know that, wow, Thomas knows what he's talking about. Like, it's not that he's posting an infographic. Like, anybody can go create an infographic out of stuff that they've looked up, but like you can see, I just go through every single question. Like I don't look anything up. I'm answering based on what I know. And I think I have 4 or 5 new clients from Instagram, solely just from the stories and people reaching out, which
Awesome.
is a good feeling. And it honestly, it makes me feel good that Justin steered me towards Instagram instead. And I didn't really realize the full capabilities that Instagram had,
Right.
which is, I mean, it's just been really nice. Now I really got to try to continue to grow the following, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, and we'll talk about that in a second, but just so people again are aware, and we'll share your profile, but it's not like you have 10,000 followers on Instagram. You got 670 something the last time I looked. And this is an important point I want to make to people is people always think in order to see results, you need a massive audience. But that's not the mindset at all. It's the right people, connecting with the right people. And what I love what you mentioned was you didn't start a business page. You already had a personal page. You had friends and family and acquaintances who were connected with you. And you start sharing all this information that a lot of your friends and family are probably going to benefit from learning. And it's sort of like the old model in the old days where people would, say, okay, call up every single person in your Rolodex, every person that have your parents have been friends with, anybody that an old teacher, and try to sell them an insurance policy or sell them this product. Now it's still tapping into that network, but it's sharing educational content so that they recognize, like you said, the value that you can provide without having to sell them, quote unquote,
Yeah.
sell them.
Yeah, it's nice because I came from selling and now I'm in the business of attracting. And like, man, is it a good feeling? Like I get that people want to call and they want to sell. That's not me. I want to make sure that people come in the door because they already trust me. And the difference between my success rate of converting a client before in the old approach to now attracting through social media, I mean, I would say nine out of every 10 people 9 out of 10 people I meet with become clients because the trust is already built. They know exactly what they're getting. They know the fee structure. Like there's no surprises coming to that first meeting. They're coming to the first meeting like, hey, I need help. Like I think you're the one that should help me. And I think even through Instagram, again, I always tie back to Justin, but we really take the approach that let's just educate everybody as much as we can. Like I'm sharing every single thing that I learn, not in a way that like, I think all these people are going to go do it themselves. Like the people that are going to do it themselves are going to do it themselves. But then the other people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. Like I didn't even think about a Roth 401k or the difference, or like, what do I do? Like, why shouldn't I go above the match and go here first? They're not going to go do it. They're just like, at least he knows how to do it. Like, I'm just going to let him do it.
Right.
And the other point that you made that's really good is I always get asked the question about like, oh, how many, followers you have, or how many people listen to your podcast, or how many subscribers. And I think all of those things are going well and growing, but I'm not in like the course business. Like I don't need 20,000 followers so I can sell $30 courses. There's nothing wrong with that. But the way that my business model is I'm going to try to get to 100 really engaged, really great clients. You don't need a large audience to do that. If I naturally build a large audience because of that I can turn into other business opportunities, great. But if I don't, then it doesn't really matter because if I have 1,000, end up with 1,000 subscribers and 10% of my clients, perfect. Like my whole client base is done. I don't need this 20,000 followers on Instagram to get there because
Right.
most of the time most of those people aren't even going to be the right audience for you.
And I think a lot of times people, they really just don't realize the amount of time, to really have a massive social media following on any platform. It is like a full-time job just to do that one platform. So, if you don't want that to be your full-time job and you want to use it to get ROI and to grow, but to still have time to do everything else, the way you're talking about it is a good thing. I do want to say one tip for those listening who do want to build their followers. Maybe you're sitting at 100 or you did set up a business page, so you don't have any followers yet. A great thing to do, I've said this on every platform and it applies here too, is to start looking up other accounts that would be relevant to your industry, ancillary types of businesses, and comment on their pages, right? So leave comments on their posts. The comments that you leave will make them click over to your page and say, oh, who's this, company or this person? And then if you're sharing great content, potentially get them to follow you back. And you can do the same thing for individuals, for businesses. So that's a great strategy. The other strategy really with Instagram is hashtags. So you'll see on a lot of people's posts, they might have 20 or 30 hashtags at the bottom. Can be overkill to use that many, but Thomas, tell us, are you using hashtags at all to try to get people to find you?
So I'm messing with it because I honestly, I don't post that much. Like most of my posting is stories. Like I've gone full head down in stories. And what I'm trying to do is slowly repurpose old content. Like every blog post that has an infographic, turn that into a post every like 2 weeks. And I just heard from a TikTok, to be honest, from one of my friends that you can hide hashtags in your stories and that can help get them shown to everybody. So I've been testing that a couple times. Don't know if I've seen any like bigger results, but on my posts, I always put a few hashtags. I'm honestly I keep messing with everything until like, then one thing goes well. I mean, I feel like I'm like a basketball player where, you ate a good meal before, and then if you play well, you just stick with it until it doesn't work. That's kind of the strategy that I stick with. But I'm also like, I don't pretend to know all of this. Like I'm always looking for, people to tell me about the algorithm and learn and try the next thing, stick with it. Algorithm change, just go to the next thing and, continue to adapt, because I think that's the only way we really can do it with how quickly they change.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on time here. The last thing that I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned was, for many of you listening, Instagram isn't really an option right now because you're not able to use it because it can be harder to be archived for compliance. So if you are an independent RIA, there's a lot of great other independent RIAs to go out there and follow right now and take a look at. If you're not, you'll always want to check with your home office compliance before you get started on any new marketing strategy. Definitely keep that in mind. But Thomas, why don't you wrap up by telling everybody what your Instagram page is so they can check it out. We'll link to it below as well. But just so that if people want to go take a look for themselves.
Yeah, so it's TK Kopelman because I had T Kopelman before in college and I had like 2,000 followers, and then I lost my password and the email that existed too. So I basically had like a 2-year period with no Instagram and then started back up my senior year of college. So that's why it's the extra K in there.
Okay. Well, we'll link to it below. Take a look, check out the strategy he's using. You'll see a good mix of graphics, personal posts, and more than anything, lots of stories, which again, I think is the way to go. But thank you so much for taking time to walk us through a little bit about how you're using Instagram. Congrats on the 4+ clients that you've gotten from it already. That's amazing. And we'll have to check in with you in another year and see how things are going.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.